Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Becomes a Pokemon Trainer. In this story, it is simply what you might expect. The story of My Hero Academia, but in world filled with not only quirks, but also Pokemon. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel, after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Morning of the sports festival. Dirt POV. Fireworks flew and exploded in the bright blue sky over UA High School, the sounds of murmuring, cheering, and conversation joining the booming of the fireworks. UA High's gates were overflowing with people, from regular civilians, to news reporters, to pro heroes, and numerous species of Pokemon accompanying. The news reporter groaned, shoulders slumped in annoyance and exhaustion at the overflowing crowd right at the gates of UA. This security line is huge. She groaned, turning to her cameraman. What's the deal? Well, a bunch of villains did just break in. Of course the school's being strict this year. Her cameraman replied, his tone coming off like it was obvious. Looking up towards the high blue buildings of the main campus, he continued with, there are some people who think they shouldn't be holding the festival at all, so soon after what happened. Perfect. The news reporter exclaimed, grinning wide. Nothing brings ratings up like a bit of controversy. And everyone will tune in to watch Class 1A. As the news reporter laughed maniacally, drawing odd glances and her cameraman to groan in embarrassment, a woman looked at them with confusion. Huh. She's excited. The woman said, her statement more a question. PL. The woman's Helioptile agreed, peeking from behind her shoulder. The woman was of average height, wearing a fashionable dress shirt that was black around the shoulders, arms, and down to half of her modest chest, while the rest of the shirt down to her waist was cherry red. A white collar popped out around her neck, the same white fabric and design on the ends of her sleeves by her elbows. She wore gray pants, brown boots, and a large brown belt around her waist, a black bag attached to the back. The woman had dark green eyes and brown hair, one particularly long, brown hair extended and curled forwards by her brow. She held a camera in hand, and Helioptile hung onto her shoulders. I can't say I blame her. The woman shrugged and talked to her Pokemon. Like her, I'm excited to see what cool quirks and Pokemon the first years got. Suddenly, her cell phone started to ring. The woman quickly answered the phone. Bonjour. She replied. Hello, Alexa, it's been a while. A beautiful, lustrous voice sounded through the other end. OMG, Sin. How are you? It's been ages since we've talked, girl. The now-named Alexa talked, her dark green eyes sparkling in joy at hearing her old friend. Yeah, sorry about that. Sin replied. Would have called sooner, but you know how busy this line of work is. Yeah, Japan's newest Pokemon champion and the world's youngest champion ever. Alexa replied with an eye roll. Well, not anymore. Cynthia replied, the woman herself sitting on a luxurious red leather chair in her penthouse, watching the news and beginnings for the sports festival, her form obscured by the large chair. Haven't you heard? Young Iris just became Egypt's Pokemon champion at the young age of 14. The little prodigy is already being dubbed the Dragon Princess. Oh yeah, I remember. Alexa nodded her head before chuckling. Kind of forgot about that. Not surprising. Cynthia replied, her lustrous pale hand raising a glass of water to her lips to sip, her golden hair curling downwards. It just happened a day or two before the USJ. Iris wasn't happy that the spotlight was stolen from her so soon. Wonder how our Dragon King Lance feels about the Dragon Princess? Alexa asked. Cynthia chuckled. The two share a rather competitive rivalry, along with a begrudging uncle-niece-like relationship. Cynthia replied. Now that's a scoop. Alexa hissed, excited for the news to write about. But anyways, what are you calling about, Sin? Are you at the sports festival? Cynthia asked. Just about to get in. Alexa answered. The line is crazy long and security's tighter than constricting Ekans. Not that I'd blame them for being extra cautious with the whole villains busting into the USJ thing. Agreed. Cynthia took another sip of her water. Alexa, could you perhaps give some early access to some of your footage of the event when the festival's over? Why? Isn't watching it on the TV good enough? You and your sister of all people are the best at finding and capturing that which is truly interesting than a regular cameraman. Cynthia replied with an amused chuckle. Oh, you truly get me, Sin. Alexa exclaimed, wiping away a comedic tear. Alright, I'll give you what I got first thing after the festival, but you got to get me interview. It's a deal. Cynthia smiled. Anything you looking for specifically? Alexa asked. Just anything, out of the ordinary, and I mean beyond the already out of the ordinary things our world holds. Cynthia said, her gray eyes shining. You know me, Alexa, I'm always interested in solving a few mysteries. On the other side of the UA gate, a line of concession stands are set up along the pathway towards the building, with tons of people crowding around for different types of snacks. The lines of stands spread out from left to right, arrows pointing to the right towards where the second and third year students will participate and left for the first years, the first year line being noticeably packed. I'm always excited to see the third years since it is their last year to show their stuff. One man spoke amongst the crowd in a sea of conversations and chatter. Nah, this time is all about those powerful first years. Another man replied. The ones that survived that villain attack. I can't wait. Hey, did you know that Endeavor's son is one of first-year students? A woman among them spoke up. No way, seriously, the first man replied in shock. Man, the stands for the first years are going to be packed. I'll take one order to go, please. A very feminine voice ordered. Whoa. Is it really you, Mount Lady? The concession worker exclaimed in excitement, a blush on his face. Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, and Death Arms stood before the stand in their costumes, with the added exception of a tag hanging around them. Kamui Septal and Death Arms Matchum stood beside them, while Mount Lady's Gorgeous stood by Lady's side. And hold the salt, will you? Mount Lady asked sweetly. Of course. The man quickly went to work. That's going to be $10. Mount Lady froze for a moment before deciding to put on the charm. Oh no. She groaned sweetly, noticeably swaying her wide hips, and fiddling with one of her longer curled hair strands, her arm purposefully brushing and moving one of her large breasts. I think I left my money in another costume. That's so hot. It's free. The man yelled, his blush growing and steam erupting from his nose. Aren't you a dear? Mount Lady yelled back, grinning wide with victory. Have no sense of shame. Kamui Woods groaned behind her, he and Death Arms both disappointingly crossing their arms. Mount Lady's Gorgeous sighed, used to her trainer using her feminine wiles to seduce men into doing whatever she wanted. Soon after, the three started walking through the stands looking around. I was hoping I'd get to do some scouting while I was here, Kamui said as he looked around. Yeah, same. Death Arms nodded and looked back at the shorter, wooden man. Too bad we're working security this time. Looks like they called in pro heroes from all over to guard this thing. Mount Lady said as she took another bite of her canned food. What a show. As they walked, they passed by three individuals walking around as well, the three notably in UA school uniforms. And where instead of walking, it was more like two of them chasing after the third. Nejire, slow down. The tallest of the three shouted, his stuck-up hair blonde, his blue eyes simplistic looking, and with no visible sclare. I'm excited as you are to see first years, but we don't need to rush. As so many people. The other man whimpered behind the taller blonde. His figure looked perpetually slumped as he shivered in nervous fear, pale skin, pointy ears, and messy indigo hair that mostly hid his thin, tired eyes. I can't wait, Mirio. The girl in front of them, Nejire, exclaimed as she continued speeding up ahead of them. I'm so curious. How strong are these first years? How did they feel when they were attacked by the villains? What kind of Pokemon do they have? Are they super strong, too? The girl, who sprouted out multiple questions as fast as an electric type, had an average height and fair skin, long and thick eyelashes over royal blue eyes that seemed to glow. Her periwinkle-colored hair was long flowing down her fit and voluptuous body, enough to reach her ankles, the hair curling around her white hips. And I need to know who was the one that girl said made an aura sphere. Nejire left that question in her mind. Is he chosen? Like me and Master Riley. I got to find out who he is. Nejire exclaimed before leaving her two companions in the dust. Haha, that's Nejire for you. The tall blonde, Mirio, chuckled nervously. Come on, Amajiki. Mirio turned to his pointy-eared companion. Let's hurry before Nejire finds whoever she's looking for, and maybe save him from her, Nejire Ness. Mirio and Amajiki ran faster to catch up to their companion. Inko Midoriya walked out of the corridor to look out at inside of the UA Sports Festival Stadium. The stadium was massive and wide, a circular shape and high walls making it appear a more metallic version of the Roman Colosseum. As far as she could see were thousands of cheering and excited people, civilians and heroes alike, sitting around the stadium that made it look like a sea of people. Inko looked to see that atop many of rows and columns of seats were letters to better indicate where their seats are. Tashi said that he convinced All Might to get me front row seats. Inko thought, looking to her ticket to see that she was in section A3. Looking behind her to see that the section was indeed section A, Inko began walking down the steps towards the very bottom. This is great. Now I can watch Izuku compete clearly. Thanks again, Tashi. Inko thoughts back to this morning when she revealed to her son that she would be watching him in the sports festival in person. Flashback. What? You're going to the festival? Izuku shouted shocked. I thought you were gonna watch it at home on the TV. That was the plan, but I managed to get tickets for the festival. Inko revealed, before raising an eyebrow. Why do you sound so shocked? Are you afraid that your sweet, supportive mother is going to embarrass you? No, that's not what I meant. Izuku quickly corrected himself. It's just that those tickets must cost like a fortune to get, and they sell out super quickly. How did you get one? Oh, it was thanks to Mr. Yagi. Inko quickly spoke, trying to hide the blush that was rising at the thought of the man. He said he managed to pull some strings with all might and get me front row seats. Inko's sweat dropped when Izuku gained a dark aura over himself, his protective son instincts acting up. Flashback over. Inko sighed. It's only a matter of time before Izuku finds out. Inko thought, worried over how her son would find her new relationship. Would you be mad that me and Tashi kept it a secret for so long? I didn't really mean to keep it a secret, but it just, sort of happened over time, and by then I was so nervous to imagine how he will react. Tashi's All Might's assistant and helped him through his training. I don't want for Izuku to think Tashi betrayed his trust. Plus there is also the fact that I haven't really dated after Hasashi and I split up, and I know he already blames himself for causing that. Boy, I guess the kid got more from you than just looks and waterfalls tears. A familiar woman's voice shouted out and laughed. Inko snapped out of her own mumbling to find herself at the front row where she intended to reach. She looked to her right to find the speaker, her eyes whitening as she did. Mitsuki. Inko cried out. Sitting in the first two seats of the row were her longtime friend and her husband, Mitsuki and Masaru Bakugo, the parents to Katsuki Bakugo. Inko. It's been a while. Mitsuki leapt from her seat and embraced her longtime friend. Mitsuki Bakugo was just as loud and energetic as she always was, as was her appearance since they first met. Due to Mitsuki's quirk, Glycerin, her body kept the same great skin quality, making her look youthful and young, despite her age being in the late 30s. She looked like a female copy of her own son, Katsuki, the boy inheriting his mother's ash blonde hair and ruby red eyes, as well as her short temper when you got on her bad side. Mitsuki stood a few inches taller than Inko, her body voluptuous and attractive enough to leave men gazing for a long while. Hey Mitsuki. Inko recovered from her surprise and hugged and greeted her friend back. And what do you mean a while? It's only been a week. Hello again, Inko. Masaru sat in his seat, his tone way more quieter and polite than Mitsuki's loud energetic one. The man of the Bakugo household was almost the direct opposite of his wife and son. Where they were loud and with explosive tempers that matched Katsuki's quirk, Masaru was more calmer and passive. Despite currently sitting, he was taller than his wife by a few inches, his brown hair's spiky style, one of the only things Katsuki inherited from his father, as well as most of his facial structure. Masaru also wore glasses over his brown eyes and had a short mustache. Hi Masaru. Inko politely greeted back, struggling under Mitsuki's iron grip of a hug. Hey, don't ignore me. Mitsuki roared out, looking like a carbon copy of her son, before her facade broke into laughs. Ah, I'm just kidding, I can't ever be mad at you, Inko. Inko sweat dropped at Mitsuki's sense of humor. Mitsuki, sweetie, please calm down. Masaru shared in Inko's nervousness, trying to calm his wife down. You drawing attention. Screw off. They can stare all they want. Now let me continue hugging my best friend. Mitsuki roared in response to the growing sweat drop of both her best friend and husband. After letting go, Mitsuki said, so what are you doing here, Inko? I didn't know you were coming to the festival. Well, I wasn't at first, but my boyfriend pulled some strings and got me front row seats. Inko started stuttering nervously, both at calling Tashi her boyfriend and mentioning her as of yet named boyfriend to Mitsuki. Ah, this mysterious boyfriend of yours that you still haven't told me. Mitsuki raised her eyebrow and grinned teasingly. One of these days I will get you to tell me who he is. I already told you that he works as an assistant at a hero agency. Inko said, not exactly lying but omitting which hero he was assisting and where he was helping to work now. That's still not a name. Mitsuki replied before calming down considerably to a more calm demeanor. But regardless, you said you got front row seats. Inko showed her seat ticket. Ha, what a coincidence. Mitsuki let out a loud chuckle of amusement. You're sitting right next to us here. Masaru and I saved up all of our extra vacation money for this, so the brat better be grateful we're here. Inko chuckled nervously at the relationship that the Bakugo family had with one another. Katsuki was always so assured of confident of himself since an early age, but this led to a superiority complex that often led to him clashing with his own mother, who held a similar temperament to her son. What resulted in this was a fiery dynamic of mother and son yelling and arguing constantly, with rather rude words like old hat Katsuki would toss at his mother and his mother, replying in kind by calling him brat. Poor Masaru was then stuck in the middle, acting as the only source of mediation between the two. A hard and exhausting role, but one that Masaru has continued to do to this day faithfully, something that made Inko both sad for him, and yet inspired. Inko. Inko snapped away from her thoughts to focus on Mitsuki, who now looks serious and ashamed. Our sons are going to compete against each other in the festival, we both know that. Inko nodded, entirely focused in what Mitsuki had to say. And we both know about the history that the two share, and the very high chances that the two will fight in roughly, too. Me and Masaru just want to apologize again for the things our son has done to yours for so long. The two women of the households were not idiots, nor were they blind. Despite his numerous attempts to keep the truth from her, Izuku couldn't hide well the suffering that he faced under the hands of Katsuki Bakugo from Inko. She would notice the growing separation between the two boys as they grew, as well as the growing amount and severity of Izuku's wounds from the bullying he faced outside of home. It didn't take a genius to know where he got those burn marks he tried to hide, or the reason why Inko had to order a lot of spare uniforms, with the amount of burn holes in some of them. Mitsuki likewise saw the signs clear as day. The growing animosity and vitriol that Bakugo growled when talking about Izuku, or Deku as Bakugo always said, and despite scolding the boy every time he said it, the lesson would not stick. It only grew worse really, with the more praise her begrudgingly talented son received from his peers and teachers. But what she despised the most was that the growing bullying and its consequences reached further to her and Inko, the two growing closer apart, with less times hanging out to not speaking to each other for months. It wasn't because the two hated each other, the two never could, but rather because the more they spent together the more awkward it was, spending time with the mother of a bully and mother of his victim, both helpless to do anything. Despite her knowledge, Inko knew reporting it would do absolutely nothing. The time she had reported and wished for this treatment of her son to stop was met with insincere promises at best, and blatant dismissal at worst. The bullying and mistreatment of her quirkless son, from students and teachers alike, would only grow with her complaints, and the school would do nothing to damage the reputation of their future hero star, in hopes they could ride the coattails of Bakugo's future fame. And the same applied to Mitsuki who, as much as she wanted to, couldn't sabotage her son's future, and feared that he would grow to truly resent her and go down a darker path. The best the two could do was remain silent and let their guilt fester and grow with shame. "It's alright, Suki," Inko replied, calling her friend by her nickname. "You know I never blamed you or Masaru for the actions of your son, Izuku either. He still calls you his Auntie Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru. We can't change the past any more than we could have controlled our sons, and whatever blame we have we will have to live with. All we can do is strive to grow and be better than who we were, and help our boys be better, too." Mitsuki was taken aback by Inko's words, before smiling warmly, Masaru, behind her, smiling as well. "Your son is lucky to have such a wonderful mother, and I'm lucky to have the best friend I could have ever asked for," Mitsuki replied, quickly wiping a tear from her eyes. "Please, Suki, I'm the lucky one," Inko replied, bringing her friend into a hug this time. "For having an even more wondrous son and a more wonderful friend." After the two broke their hug, and getting one of appreciation from Masaru, Inko sat down, waiting eagerly and dreadfully for the festival to start, and what dangers her son will have to face with. The festival is always a hard and dangerous event, Inko thought, remembering the times she and Izuku would watch the festival and all the dangerous trials the UA students. "There was a time where I wouldn't want Izuku to do any of this, but that time has passed." Inko pressed a hand to her heart as the festival was about to begin with present mixed voice. "I have confidence in my son, and I know, win or lose, that you will be amazing, Izuku. I failed to support you then, but I will support you now." Meanwhile, Class 1 awaited impatiently inside their waiting room, either by standing or pacing around energetic, sitting nervously, or stretching their limbs to be as ready as can be. "Aw man," Mina whined as she looked and stretched out her UA uniform shirt. "I was totally hoping I could have worn my costume. At least everyone will be in uniforms." Ojiro spoke up as he stretched. "To keep things fair, the hero courses won't be the only ones participating." True to Mina's and Ojiro's words, all of Class 1 wore their blue and white UA sports uniforms, their Pokemon's Pokeballs strapped tightly to the belts around the waist. Most were indifferent to the requirement, except a couple. Bakugo was unhappy, unable to show his costume off, enraged that he had to play fair for the worthless extras. Serena was, begrudgingly, on the same boat as Bakugo, but instead of being because she wanted to show her costume, not that it wouldn't hurt to show to the pros watching, without the water stored in her suit, Serena feared that she would be put at a disadvantage without a nearby source of water to pull from. However, Serena and the girls found a positive to the uniforms, mainly in how well Izuku's uniform hugged his lean, muscular form. Asui croaked in approval to see Izuku's form once again, memories of their recent fishing trip coming to her mind. Higakure giggled perversely at how the black undershirt hugged Izuku's torso like a second skin, before it was barred from her eyes when Izuku zipped up the rest of the blue uniform. Uraraka and Momo blushed as they stared at Izuku's forearms and biceps that were shown. Minette too had to admit the pros when it came to a uniform, grinning and licking her lips at Midoriya's butt, hugged by his pants. The only thing that Serena still resented about wearing the uniforms was still the lack of water she could use to splash and have Izuku's form more tightly shown. Kyoka scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Oh come on, have some dignity, girls," Kyoka thought, annoyed at how the rest of her female classmates were drooling over Midoriya like a pack of hungry hyenas. Though, Kyoka herself couldn't help the occasional sideways glance at Midoriya's biceps. Izuku breathed in deeply, and exhaling. "Deep breaths, calm your nerves," Izuku thought. Feeling the shaking in his belt, Izuku turned his thoughts to telepathic communication. "Settle down, Pikachu. It's just for the festival." "Oh yeah, it's just for the festival, Pikachu. Settle down, Pikachu," Pikachu telepathically retorted in a mocking imitation Deku's voice. "You try to calm down when you are in a spherical death trap for what might be hours. Ugh, oh how Arceus condemns me." A smooth, slightly croaking voice rang in his head. That my defeat upon capture would have been from a frightened rat that plagues my ears. Okay, first off, what ears? You don't have any, Pikachu mentally yelled back. Secondly, you challenged me, Bubble Brains, and lost. I wish to fight a worthy opponent strong against my typing to test my skills and prove our trainer worthy. Froakie croaked back. While Master Izuku has admirably exceeded my expectations, your worthiness I find lacking and your victory attributed to Master Izuku and his strategy. Come on out and face me again, mon on mon. Pikachu retorted, Izuku tiredly imagining Pikachu clashing heads with Froakie as electricity sparked in his cheeks, and, comically, through his eyes, clashing with Froakie's blue one. Then we'll see who's worthy, Sir Fancy Talk. I am sorely tempted, Sparkered. Froakie croaked back. Izuku, as well as Eevee and Combuskin in their Pokeballs, sweat dropped at the banter between Pikachu and Froakie, again. Ever since their duel at the marsh and Froakie full recovery from their battle, Izuku's new Pokemon and Pikachu had formed a rivalry that consisted of a lot of back and forth bantering between the two, hurling insults and names at each other, when not. And even during battling. This banter of course had plagued Izuku and the other two to no end. Izuku at least looked on the bright side of things, and found that Froakie proved unusually powerful compared to his other species, keeping up and clashing with Pikachu on even footing despite his type disadvantage. Froakie also proved as loyal and great with commands as much as both Combuskin and Eevee. Truly, the Pokemon had more than proved his place in his team, if proving so was ever in Izuku's intentions, and had quickly made friends and bonds with Combuskin, Eevee, and even Pikachu, on a begrudging respect of their skills, despite their banter saying contrary, and proved more benefit to push the two hard in their training. Though, Izuku didn't need them arguing right now, needing to focus for the festival. Will you two quiet down? Izuku yelled at the two. We need to focus on the festival, not your bantering. The two immediately went silent. Apologies, Master Izuku. Froakie replied, his tone now more humbly. I forget myself. It won't happen again. TSK, kiss ass. Pikachu scoffed. Why you? Hey. Izuku quickly shut down the bantering before it continued again. That's enough, or so help me I will force you both to have endure Mr. Mime's act for a whole day. For all his life, his mom's Mr. Mime loved to put on theatric mime acts to entertain. Izuku always found them funny, especially as a kid, but Eevee and Pikachu absolutely despised them, Combuskin and Froakie joining them in their displeasure of the painful, awkward acts. Yes sir. The two quickly replied, their tone fearful of the threat and quickly went silent. Everyone, get ready. Ida yelled, entering the waiting room from outside. We're entering the arena soon. Just in time. Izuku sighed. Just as Izuku was about to order the class to go, he was interrupted again, but not by his Pokemon. Midoriya. Todoroki spoke up and walked up before him, gaining the attention of his target and the rest of the class. Todoroki. Izuku replied with a curt nod, slight confusion on his face. Nervousness started to fill Midoriya once again at the cold and blank stare from Todoroki's mismatched eyes. It didn't help that, much like Momo, Todoroki stood an inch or two taller than him, and forced Izuku to stare up at him. What's up? Todoroki was silent for a moment, his eyes narrowing for a split second, as if contemplating his words. It's clear that on an objective standpoint that I'm stronger than you. Todoroki finally said. Izuku and the class were taken back by his sudden blunt words that made even Takasui by surprise. Bakugo stared at the two with narrowed angry eyes of his own. While our Pokemon battle ended on an official draw, it's clear to everyone that you defeated me, had you not forfeited your Pikachu. Todoroki continued. And though you are indeed powerful, my Quirk's power far exceeds yours. Izuku's surprised face hardened into a serious frown, but you got All Might in your corner, helping you out. Surprise and panic quickly took back residence in Izuku's eyes, going so stiff it would be mistaken for Todoroki actually freezing him with his quirk. Bakugo was likewise taken back by Todoroki's words, only to glare harder at Izuku with more anger, suspicion, and even jealousy. Serena's eyes whitened as well, her suspicions on Izuku, his sudden quirk, and All Might rearing back in her mind. I'm not here to pry about what's going on between the two of you, Todoroki continued before Izuku had a chance to reply, his cold eyes narrowing. But know this. Remember what I said after our match. I will win and defeat you, with my own power. Consider this my own declaration of war, class rep. Izuku frowned and glared back at Todoroki, a bead of sweat rolling down Izuku's side. The class was silent. Uraraka, Serena, and Asui looked between the two with growing concern. Momo and Iida frowned at Todoroki, his attempt of a mock at the end not going unnoticed by the vice rep and chief class officer. Bakugo's glare only intensified. Whoa, what's with these declarations of war lately? Kaminari asked, slightly unnerved by the cold seriousness between the two. Yeah, why are you picking a fight all of a sudden? Kirishima walked up and placed a hand on Todoroki's shoulder. And right before we get started. I must concur. Iida said, making his way and placing a hand on Todoroki's other shoulder. Please assist this clearly malicious behavior towards our class rep, Todoroki. We're not here to make friends. Todoroki coldly replied, brushing off the two's hands, turning away from the three and marching towards the door. And don't forget, class officer, that we aren't supposed to go easy on each other. Don't forget this isn't a team effort. Izuku looked down, his hands tightening into a clenched fist. Todoroki. Izuku spoke up, his tone enough to get the taller boy to stop in his tracks, and turn back to face him. I don't know what's running through your head, or why you seem so determined to challenge me, but you're right. Objectively, you are stronger. Izuku thought back to Todoroki's power and precision against the Nomu at the Yusei. In fact, you might have the greatest potential than anyone in the hero course. It's why you got in so easily, right? Hey, Midoriya, maybe you're being a little too hard on yourself, and us. Kirishima nervously said. No, I'm not. Izuku cut Kirishima off, thinking back to Shinsu, Mineta, Tetsu, and Manama. The other courses, they're going to be gunning for us with all they have, and we are all going to have to give it our all if we want to stand out. He turned back to the rest of the class with a serious expression. And remember what I said 2 weeks ago. I told you all to challenge yourselves at the festival and prove this is where we belong. Well, now I say this. As class rep, I challenge you all not just to prove to them that you belong, but to each other as well. I want you all not to hold back against each other. Izuku continued. Uraraka and Serena stared at Izuku stunned before smiling, determined. Kyoka raised an eyebrow, and Aoi almost looked at Deku while mid-pose. I want you all to give this tournament everything you got and more. Momo and Iida smiling and nodding in approval. Tokoyami nodded too, while Shoji paid attention silently, and Ojiro and Sato stretched their arms. I want you to challenge each other, friends or not, to prove your worth. Asui croaked approvingly, Mina and Higakure pumped up their fists, Kaminari, Sero, and Kirishima grinned, the latter pounding his fists together, and even Shikoto looked determined. Izuku raised his fist into the air and declared, live up to the words of this school, show them to the world and go beyond, plus ultra style. Yeah. The rest of the class, except Bakugo and Todoroki cheered. Izuku looked back to Todoroki, his eyes alight with energy. And I'll be aiming for the top, too. I'll see you all there. Izuku finished. Todoroki narrowed his eyes, a glimmer of anger peeking out. Fine. He simply said. You heard our class rep. Iida yelled out. Let's make him and ourselves proud. Go beyond. Plus ultra. Class 1A, sans Izuku and Todoroki as they continued their glaring, raised their fists. Meanwhile, Bakugo scoffed his teeth bare in a growling frown. Hey, all you rapid sports fans. Make some noise. President Mick's voice boomed throughout the stadium, the resulting cheers and screams of excitement nearly drowning out his own voice. Get those cameras ready, media hordes. Mick referred to the line of cameramen lined up and readying their cameras. This year we are only bringing you the hottest performances in sports festival history, guaranteed. Mick continued, Mick currently sitting in the announcement booth at the very top of the stadium. Aizawa, still wrapped up in bandages, sat beside him. I'm radio talk show host, teacher, and your sports festival announcer of all things hot and spicy. Present Mick. And joining me as my co-host, everyone's favorite underground hero, fellow teacher, and world's grumpiest grumpy Gus. Eraserhead. Why did I let you talk me into this? Eraserhead grumbled, resulting in some actual laughs from the stadium crowd. Poor Mr. Aizawa. Mirio rubbed the back of his neck as he, Nejire, and Amajiki sat at one of the front row seats. He still doesn't like the attention. Same here. Amajiki shuddered beside him, his slumped form quivering in fear. There are so many people, so loud, can't picture them as potatoes if they are so loud. They must be staring at me. Gulp, I'm going to hurl. Nobody is looking at you, Tamaki. No need to worry. Nejire assured the shy team with a chipper voice. They're all excited for it to begin. And so am I. What do you think Class 1 will look like? Will they be cocky because they survived a villain attack? What about the other courses, like Class 1B? They are in the hero course too. Will they be jealous of 1A? Will that make them more competitive? I'm sure your questions will be answered soon, Nejire. Mirio responded, choosing not to reply to every question that Nejire fired rapidly. I think Mr. Mick is about to start introducing the first-year classes. I only got one question for you all before we start this show. Are you ready to rumble? Mick roared out. The stadium met him with a choir of affirmative roars and cheers. That's what I like to hear, folks. Mick roared again. Ugh, too noisy. Eraser grumbled again. Just started so I can get back to my nap quicker. Back at the Midori residence, Mr. Mime sat on the couch, watching and recording the festival from the TV, eagerly waiting to see Izuku and his Pokemon, wondering what act to perform in congratulations. Emma and the Asui family sat and ate as the festival was beginning on their TV. Satsuki and Samador, Lumber sitting beside Samador and Wishiwashi swimming contentedly in a fishing bowl on Satsuki's lap, hoped to see a lot of their big sis Tsu and big bro Izuku. Sitting in a dark room, his hands wrapped in bandages, Tomohiro Shigaraki sat on a chair, looking onto the bright screen of his computer showcasing the festival. Watch closely, Tomura Shigaraki. The menacing voice spoke through the monitor behind Shigaraki. The students in the hero course may become your foes in the future. Study and watch them closely. Shigaraki replied with mumbled growl yet remained silent as he watched, subconsciously raising his right hand to his neck. Yet as it touched, Shigaraki registered the once broken, yet still healing hand covered in bandages. Shigaraki growled hatefully at the constant reminder the bandaged hand was and switched to his left to scratch and claw at his neck. I wonder if that brat will show up. Shigaraki thought, recalling to a certain green-haired brat that broke his hand in the first place. At the memory, Shigaraki scratched his neck harder. I sure hope so. I'll do what master says and watch you closely, brat. Very closely. Sitting in a dark room and watching very closely as well, the wild raven black-haired man sat on his couch. Lucario stood at the side while Riolu sat on the couch beside the man eating a piece of a chocolate bar. The man smirked, his eyes still hidden by his wild hair, taking a sip of juice, as he waited for the festival to start and see Master Taishi's the one for himself. In contrast, Cynthia sat on her throne-like leather chair with the light illuminating her penthouse living room, the Garchomp laying down, yet watching the flat-screen TV. Cynthia sipped water from her glass, her amber eyes full of excitement and curiosity. Let's see what kind of talent we will see, she said. In another dark room, illuminated by the light of his computer, Night Eyes stared at the monitor in critical anticipation to see the boy that All Might passed his quirk onto, and deny him from being worthy. Let me hear you all scream as our students make their way to the stage. Mick roared out. Inko, Mitsuki, and Masaru sat eagerly for the students to pour in and begin. Masaru pointed a video camera up and towards the stadium to record live. While Inko clutched her seat in excitement for her son, a lingering part in her mind thought sigh it's a shame that Tashi couldn't make it for the festival. I'm sure that he would love to see how far Izuku has progressed. Meanwhile, up with the rest of the teachers in the teacher stands, All Might watched anxiously as the festival began. You must proudly introduce yourself to the world, and proudly say I am here. All Might's words rang in Izuku's head, as his iconic red sneaker was bathed in the sunlight. I won't let you down, All Might, Mom. Izuku thought, his eyes ablaze with fiery determination. I'll show this world who I truly am. This first group are no strangers to the spotlight, Mick announced. You know them for withstanding a villain attack. The dazzling students lighting up the world with solid gold skills. Introducing the hero course of Class 1A. Class 1A stepped through the tunnel and out into the large field, and the deafening cheers of the crowd, Izuku leading the charge, confidently. Inko almost burst into tears as she saw her baby boy look so strong and confident. Mitsuki meanwhile was roaring out, trying to get Katsuki's attention to get a good picture. So that's Class 1A. Mirio said, smilingly inspecting the group of 20 teens. I see some interesting quirks already with some of them. But what they can truly do is left to be seen. And Majiki responded, now looking at the students closely. I think the blonde and the scarred boy are ones to look out for. They look so scary. Nejire was in a world on her own as she stared at Class 1A, suddenly all cheer and smiles gone and resorting to serious curiosity. Nejire's royal blue eyes flashed a brighter crystal blue glow. The world lost most color and became mostly black and blue, with wispy wavy lines of blue and other slight colors, to trace the outlines of people's shape. As she looked and focused on the group of students, she could see many different shades of colors of their aura. For example, a raging, hateful red hue coming from the ash blonde one, a mix of cold, icy blue and fiery, vengeful red from the scarred one, and multiple different shades coming from the girls. Yet they all had a shade of loving, sweet pink. With the purple-haired one with weird jacks coming from her ears only a slight glimmer. Almost all of them already have found love. Nejire cooed delightfully. But to who? As Nejire traced the point of their affections, Nejire's eyes whitened. No way. Nejire thought in disbelief. The certain green-haired teen's soul was brimming, almost overflowing with aura, mostly an emerald green that churned like storm. She also found 8 sparkling multicolored lights hidden inside the inky black of the green storm. The very flow of it as she sensed it was almost suffocating, yet she felt drawn to it, somehow. Is this the one that made that aura sphere I heard? Nejire thought, her mind exploding with questions. He has to be. His aura is almost overflowing compared to the rest. It looks almost as vast as mine, maybe even more than Master Riley. But is he disguising his aura as his quirk, or does he have a quirked aura, too? As he led his class, Ida and Momo beside him, Izuku looked around to see the scope of the crowd of cheering onlookers and viewers. Oh man, so many people. Izuku thought, a shiver of nervous fear shooting up his spine. Meanwhile, Amajiki suddenly turned his full attention towards Midoriya, suddenly feeling a strong kinship with him. Another shiver ran down the back of Izuku's neck, though this time, it gave Izuku slight pause. This feeling, it's just like back when I first met Mr. Taishi. Izuku thought, his head buzzing, his ears burning as he felt like someone was watching him. Unlike the possibly millions of onlookers, both within the stands and throughout the world, this one feeling of being stared at felt like he was being more than watched, but observed, analyzed, his entire being desiccated for answers. Izuku figured that this must be what Bakugo and everyone else felt when he analyzed their quirks. I hope that we can still give our best performances possible, even though there's a lot of people watching. Iida spoke up, drawing Izuku's attention away from his thoughts. I suppose this is just another aspect of being a hero we all have to get used to. Snapped free from his thoughts, Izuku nodded, agreeing with Iida. Izuku recalled how much attention All Might, and pro-heroes in general, drew in with their very presence. Stilling his nerves and remembering his goal, Izuku continued to strive forwards, putting the thoughts over his analyzing onlooker behind him, for now. Present Mix sure talked us up a lot. Kinda makes me nervous. Kirishima confessed as he looked around. He turned to look ahead of him towards Bakugo, his head slightly slumped and his eyes hidden by the shadow of his hair. How are you feeling, man? I'm not worried. Bakugo replied, his ruby-red eyes appearing in a determined glare, his grin near malicious in nature. Makes me want to win this thing even more. Now that's a manly response there. Kirishima exclaimed. They haven't been getting nearly as much screen time, but look out for this group folks. They are ripe full of talent. Welcome Hero Course Class 1B. With Mick's supportive yet brief introduction, Class 1B walked out from another tunnel into the large field, Class 1A to the left of them and other class courses coming from the right of them. Among the second class of hero students were many unique individuals, from their tallest member looking like a walking glue dispenser, another student who looked like a more livelier skeleton with hair, a girl with horns and horse-like feet, and another girl with vines for hair. Leading the class was Tetsu, Monoma, and a girl with orange hair and a ponytail. Oh man, look at all the people who showed up. A girl with mossy green hair and a sharp-toothed grin whistled. I think I see some pros in the stands. All the more reason to give this festival a whirl. The orange-haired girl in front of her replied. To show what we are made of. Class rep. The greenette replied with a mock-joking salute. Looking to her left, she spotted Class 1A as they walked towards the center of the field like them. So that's Class 1A, They look serious. Not at all like what Monoma spoke about them. That's why you shouldn't listen to Monoma's baiting, Takage. The orange-haired girl replied again, letting out a tired sigh at the mention of their overzealous classmate. Competition can lead to mutual growth and camaraderie, but only by being tempered with honor and humility. As you command, Master Kendo. Takage replied with a humorous tone and mock bow, much to Kendo's eye rolls and amused grin. Takage looked back to their rival class, her attention focused on two. Other greenettes. She muttered. The female one slightly hunched, frog-like in appearance, and with long sea green hair, while the other male one had a more darker emerald green hair. As she focused onto the boy's serious face and determined energy, Setsuna licked her lips, interested. Cute ones, too. Next up, General Studies Classes C, D, and E. Mick introduced the three General Studies courses quickly and briefly. Leading the group of mostly plain and miserable-looking students were Shinsu and Mineta. Then there's the support classes F, G, and H. Mick again introduced the next classes with almost no fanfare. Most of the students of the three classes wore lightweight armor, padding, and gloves. One of the most notable of their numbers included a girl with pink hair shaped like dreadlocks at the ends, who wore a weird set of goggles and headwear, a special-looking vest strapped over her rather large chest, and her hands covered in large gloves. And finally, Business Class I, J, and K. Mick finished introducing the classes with groups of rather plain, normal-looking students that gave off a blend of disinterest and attentiveness. Give it up for all of UA's first-year contestants. Mick roared out to the roar of the crowds. I get the feeling that we are just here to make the hero students look better. Shinsu looked back to see one of his classmates groan out those words, he and the rest looking miserable. I can't wait for this to be over with. The girl beside him groaned too. Hey, don't listen to them. Shinsu heard and looked down to see a smirking Mineta, giving him a thumbs up. More room for us to show our skills, right? Shinsu studied the only member of his class that was as determined as he was. Shinsu nodded in agreement and continued trekking towards the middle with the rest, casting the groans of his classmates out from his mind, reigniting the strength within towards his goal. As all the classes gathered in the middle, the crack of a Flogger-style whip sounded as it was raised into the air. Quiet. A woman's voice proclaimed loudly. Now, it is time for the introductory speech. The men, and few women, in the stands suddenly blushed and gawked in lustful awe. The chief umpire for the first years is the rated hero. Midnight. One pro-hero in the stands exclaimed in awe. Standing on the large white podium, Midnight stood, her hips struck out in a pose. A red, eyeless domino mask she wore over her sky-blue eyes, a small beauty mark just below her left eye. Long, spiky dark purple hair flowed down to her waist and over her voluptuous body, clothed in a rather seductive hero costume resembling a dominatrix outfit. A black breastless leotard, similar to a corset covered her waist, nether regions, her neckline and the valley between her breasts, emblazoned with red gemstones, while her shoulders, arms, legs, hips, and breasts were clothed in a thin white bodysuit that hugged her body like a second skin. A burgundy red utility belt stuck around her hips, her thigh-high black translucent garter stocking attached to it, and her feet clothed in black, heel, knee boots. One half of a pair of cufflinks she wore around her wrists where the white of her bodysuit ended. Amazing. A pro hero gawked with a lustful blush. Seriously, the other years don't know what they're missing. Another hero agreed. The blushes and jealousy from most of the women extended further from the crowds and into the students gathered before the pro heroine. Izuku, blushing red, did all he could from staring at midnight for too long as if his life depended on it, which judging from the jealous, attentive stares of the girls beside him, it might as well have been. Mineta was left a blushing, drooling mess, salivating so much it flowed comically off his slack-jawed mouth like a waterfall. Someone should talk to Miss Midnight about what she's wearing. Kirishima muttered, a light blush on his cheeks. Yeah, that costume should come with a warning. Kaminari nodded, blushing and drooling. Not that I'm complaining. Kaminari whispered that last part. Is it really appropriate apparel for a high school game? An ever-stoic Tokoyami questioned. Silence everyone. Midnight shouted out with another crack of her Floger-style whip. And for the student pledge, we have the student who placed first in the entrance exam. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku was frozen in fright as the students, worse, the eyes of the world stared at him, his nervousness and fear tripled. Well, fuck. Get ready to die of embarrassment, guys. Pikachu supportively said. At least try to be supportive. Kombuskin yelled at the electric mouse. Nervously, Izuku started to move towards the stand. As he walked, he could hear the snickers and scoffs of the students behind him, most coming from the general studies students, Izuku could tell. He could distinctly hear Monoma from before snicker before his voice descended into a whisper, but he knew what words he likely had to say about him. But what was worse was the stares and glares. Todoroki's cold, narrowed ones, Bakugo's enraged, hateful ones, Shinsu's emotionless ones, and the stares of the viewing audience of the world. As he made it to the mic, turning around, Izuku looked around towards his friends and classmates. What he was met with warmed his fearful heart. Kirishima, Sero, and Kaminari grinned and nodded at him, Kirishima giving him a thumbs up. Mina and Higakure grinned excitedly, at least Izuku thought Higakure was grinning by how jumpy she was. Momo and Ida gave supportive nods to him, urging him on with smiles. Kyoka, Tokoyami, and the rest gave either nods or looks of support and urging as well, and Uraraka and Asui nodded and smiled in support. He even saw Mineta among the front of crowd, giving him a grin and thumbs up, and Izuku's eyes widened a bit as he remembered his speech to Mineta, after he was expelled from the hero course. Izuku's eyes then met Serena's. She looked at him with loving pride, her eyes bright and full of support, her smile white and cheerful. She nodded and placed a hand over her heart. She didn't need to speak for Izuku to know the words she meant. Speak from the heart. Whenever you are nervous or unsure what to say, look inside, to your heart, your soul, and the words they hold. Speak from heart, and you will never go wrong. Go on, Izuku. Eevee's voice spoke in his head. Serena believes in you. They believe in you. Inko and All Might believe in you. We all believe in you. Go on, and show the world who you are. Warmth filled his heart, the glares vanished from his sight, the fear numbed to his senses. Izuku breathed in deeply, imaging his mother looking at him with love and pride, All Might looking at with expectations. After everything you have done for me, I won't let you all down. Any of you. Izuku sighed and spoke. All men are not created equal. Izuku began to the silence of the crowd and world. I learned this lesson when I was only 4 years old. The world we live in is not full of sunshine and rainbows, it is a cruel world, cruel and unfair. A world where the strong luck can bring down the weak, the innocent, and the suffering. Izuku looked down at his open palm. For most of my life, my quirk never came, only coming to be a few months ago, and for 11 years I lived quirkless and treated like trash for it. I was bullied, beaten down, mocked, laughed, spat on and looked upon with disgust and ridicule for something I had no control of, for being born different. Even my Pokemon, my family, was treated harshly for even knowing me. Izuku continued, as the memories of the past came to his mind. All my life, I wanted to be a hero, but I was always met with scorn and ridicule, told no over and over and beaten into the dirt for dreaming. I was even told to take my own life and pray to have a quirk in the next life. I wouldn't lie and say I never considered it at times. And I'm not alone in this pain. There are others out there who went through the same or similar. Who are turned away, beaten, abused, and treated harshly by this cruel, unfair world. Izuku steeled his nerves and breathed in. But every time I got beaten down, I would always get back up. No matter how hard they punched, kicked, or mocked me, I always got right back up. Because I was given strength by a power beyond any quirk or Pokemon, a power that all people of this world share, one that shines a light through the darkest of times. Hope. A hope to be stronger than the day before, to be better than what came before, for those who ridicule me to be better and be redeemed. A hope for a brighter tomorrow. Izuku clenched his fists and looked up to the crowd, to his friends, family, to the world, his eyes ablaze with a burning fire. That is the hero that I wanted to be. Not a symbol of peace, not just the #1 hero. I wanted to be something more. I want to be a hero of hope. A symbol of hope. One who faces any evil and villainy and wins no matter what, that helps those who can't help themselves, that looks to them with a smile, and say that everything is going to be okay. You must proudly introduce yourself to the world, and proudly say, "Because I am here," Izuku proclaimed with a powerful voice that shook the crowd and their hearts. So I trained, grew stronger, became better, and one day my quirk finally came forth, and still I trained, never giving in, never holding back, never giving in to the world telling me to move, for I said no, you move. And finally, one day, I was finally told what I always wanted to hear. Young man, you too can become a hero. All Might's eyes grew wide, awe and pride gleaming out. Bakugo's anger was quickly overtaken by shock and stunned. My hope came true, my dream came true, and now I am here to train, to grow, to become the hero I always wanted to be. To be what a hero is supposed to be. What I will be. Izuku looked at the students stunned in silence. And not just me, we are here. All of us. Izuku gestured to the students before him. We are all here to give it out our all, to be the heroes we want to be, to show the world who we are, and to go beyond our limits. Looking to crowd of student, his eyes landing on Todoroki, Bakugo, Monoma, Shinsu, and more, Izuku continued. Some of you here declared war on me, and I said that words aren't enough. This world will not listen to your complaining and whining about your lot in life, only action will decide your future, and the hope and strength to guide you. So I say to you all, my fellow students and competitors, to give this tournament your all. Come at me with all you got, because I will in turn come at you with all I got. To fight for your dreams and go beyond. Raising a fist into the air, eyes ablaze with energy, Izuku smiled to the world white and shining. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this year's sports festival as we promise, to do our best and go beyond. Plus Ultra. Yeah. The stadium roared out in cheer, the screams nearly deafening Izuku. Ultra. 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 The crowd chanted in unison, standing tall and fists raised in the air like him. Inko wept and cried out in pure joy and love, seeing her baby boy becoming the man he was always destined to be, a hero to inspire and give hope to others. Mitsuki and Misaru smiled softly at their surrogate nephew and clapped and cheered. Underneath his bandages, Aizawa smiled and nodded, approving. Nezu clapped in approval with the other teachers, keeping the logical side and valuable information of Izuku's past in the back of his head, to praise his students' words and spirit. Taishi closed his eyes and smiled, pleased, knowing he found the one. Wow. That was awesome. Mirio cheered as he clapped enthusiastically. He's got me all powered up. Now I can't wait to see what he will do. His light. Amajiki muttered as he clapped and smiled. So familiar. Like yours, Mirio. No offense, Tamaki, but I think this kid makes mine look pale by comparison. Mirio replied. Nejire was silent as she stared at Izuku Midoriya. During his speech, she was blown away by the wave of passion, and the powerful surge of aura following. Her face blushed pink, her heart fluttered and raced, all thoughts in her mind fading away and replaced with only one question. Are you the one, Izuku Midoriya? The raven-haired man's white mouth closed into a grin, his Lucario nodding, approving Izuku's words, and Ryolu beginning to cheer and jump for the boy. A hero of hope, huh? The man thought, ironically, a surge of hope starting to sprout from his own soul. Maybe the old man was right after all. We'll see. Cynthia rubbed her chin and looked upon the boy that even stunned her with his words, even gaining Garchom's attention and approval. What an interesting find. Cynthia muttered to herself, not curious to see what will come of this boy. Mr. Mime jumped and clapped for Izuku, crying out his name multiple times as he cheered for joy. The Asui family was in likewise celebration for their already decided member of the family. Satsuki and even Samador at first cried at the beginning words of Izuku's painful past, Barry was horrified and saddened, and Ganma was beyond enraged on Izuku's behalf. But after his words of encouragement and declaration of hope, the Asui family was given hope for Izuku and their daughter to do well. Ultra. 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 The Asui family cheered with the crowd, even with Shuashi and Lomber cheering in their own ways. That brat. That brat. Shigaraki growled hatefully, clawing at his neck more and more, enraged by the audacity of the green-haired teen he now knows as Izuku. Strangely, the man who spoke through the TV was silent. Night Eye was silent as he watched. At first, he was taken back, his unfazable seriousness replaced by shock, then his fists tightened, his fists clenched white, and he growled. How dare he? Night Eye growled, finding offense in Midoriya's words, finding his declaration of surpassing the symbol of peace, as if it was surpassable and flawed, disrespectful towards All Might's legacy. Why? Why did you choose someone so unworthy, All Might? Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.